Hey traders, welcome back to another video. So in this video, I'm going to talk about something actually I don't think many people address, and it's so important. What is MAE? MAE stands for your Maximum Adverse Excursion. Sounds like a mouthful. Let me explain a little bit more. So Maximum Adverse Excursion, what exactly is that? What the heck is that all about? It basically means if you are in a trade, okay, so let's say you have gone long, you've gone long 10 contracts, 10 CFDs, 10 pound a point, 10 whatever units it may be that you're trading, wherever you are in the world, at let's say, let's use for argument's sake at 200. Okay, I'm just using this as a pure example. Obviously we need to kind of put it into perspective here, but here's our chart. Okay, the market's chugged along, and we've gone long just here. There's our long trade right there. Now what happens from this point onwards, we are tracking what's called our maximum adverse excursion. It basically means how far has the price gone against us while we've been in the trade until we have closed the trade. Now, what are the options? What are the options that we can have? Let me see if I can find a better color pen for us on my desk here. Let's try the blue. Does this work? It does indeed. Okay, so our winning trade is marked in blue, and this is what happens to us. It comes down 25 ticks, it comes back up, and then we take our exit here and we make plus 70 pips. Okay, and this was our entry point here. So from here to here was 70 pips. But before we got our 70 pips, it came down and it went minus 20 pips. It went 20 pips against us. Our stop was, let's say it was a minus 40 pips for argument's sake. It went, if I can get my words out, it went minus 20 pips before it went, and we took a nice profit at 70 pips. That is our maximum adverse excursion. In other words, it's the worst possible point the price went to before it came back in profit for us. Now, in that example, it was 20 pips. So what do? We would log it down on one of our trades in our columns and we'd say, okay, 20 pips. The next trade we take, very similar. This time, let's say it comes down a little bit lower, or let's say it goes up first, then comes down. It doesn't matter. It's all a case of how far it goes before we close it. It could go up 60, we don't take it, it comes back down 100, then goes back up 100, we then take our profits, then our maximum adverse excursion would be 100 in that case, okay? It's whatever the trade, how far the trade goes against you before you take your profits. Now, what's the point in that? You're saying, okay, what's the point in that? Oh, finally, guys, before I say that, obviously, if a trade comes down and stops you out, then that just becomes a stop out. It's an irrelevant trade. There's no value to that. You've been stopped out on. It's a losing trade. Your maximum adverse excursion is basically based on your stop. So there's no relevance as much as there is when you see how far the trade went against you before you went in profit. So what's the point in this? Let's get back to what we're talking about. If, say, for example, you were getting data like this and you were saying, okay, well, I had 20 pips there, and then the next trade I had 22, and then I had a 5, and then I had a 50, oh, and then I had like a 10, and then I had a 1, and then I had a 15. You kind of look at that and you say, well, all right, let me see what the situation is here. Most of the time, and let's say using a 60 point stop, a 60 pip stop. For example, I'm really being broad with this, but I think you get where I'm going with here. You've got 60 tick stop, 60 pip stop, and you're trading this. Obviously, that's what happened because you've gone minus 50 is your worst here, and you're still in the game. Now, over this is not that much data, appreciate, but what you're saying here is you're saying, listen, actually, only once did I go above 22. You know, I went to 50 here, but most of them were capped at 22. So let me work out what would happen if I had a 25 pip stop on my trades instead of a 60 pip stop, and I increased my position size accordingly so that my monetary risk was still the same as the 60 pip stop. How would that have helped? How would that have affected my trades from the last month, from the last quarter, from last year, whatever it may be? And then you go back and you say, well, actually, yes, I would have been stopped out of this one. Maybe there's another one further here I would have been stopped out on. But all of these I would still be fine on. and I would be in twice as much size because I would still be risking the same amount monetarily, be a little bit more, but you kind of get the point. So it gives you really key information. And actually, you know, you might even find stuff that if you want to go one step further, and this is not quite MAE, but how many times after you've been stopped for, let's say, minus 60, where does the price go after? That's a harder thing to do, and you have to do that a bit more manually and work out where it goes. But that could help you in terms of where you're positioning your stop. But going back to the maximum adverse excursion, this is really, really good for letting you know, generally, are you too early? Are you too late? And another thing, let me just add this while I'm here, we may as well talk about this. If you have that scenario where, you have, 10, 15, 11, 7, 22, 18, whatever, and you're using a 25 pip stop. Just as an example here, there's your maximum adverse excursion from those number of trades that you're looking at. The common theme here is, listen, almost, well, in this sample size, all of them go against me first before I take my trade. So rather than looking at it from a stop perspective, okay, there's some data we can look at from a stop perspective and say, or perhaps we could tighten it. But from another perspective is we say, hey, all of these have gone against us. Why don't I, instead of going in, why don't I wait and put a limit order in 10 ticks below the price that I'm willing to enter, in which case my maximum adverse excursion on these trades would be 0, would be 5, would be 1, I wouldn't be in this trade at all, would be 12, would be 8. So in other words, I can now increase my position size or whatever I can do, or I don't need to increase my position size. I could bring my limit down by 10 as well. I could shuffle the whole thing down. So let's say I normally would go long here, okay, and I've got all this data that says most of the time the price goes against me by at least 10 pips. I can then actually put my long here for all my trades. I can bring my stop lower as well if I wanted to. I can shuffle the whole trade down and end up giving myself a higher probability of getting my target because it doesn't have to go so far. So if I've got a 50 tick target, it now becomes 40s from my initial, if that makes sense. So there's loads of useful data you can do. And actually, I think we're all quite guilty of not analyzing our own trades enough. We spend more time looking at the markets, looking at the next winning trade, and how to reduce our losing trades, that kind of thing, rather than looking at our current performance and saying, you know what is our maximum adverse excursion? How far do trades go against me? And another thing, guys, or very quickly, I'll do this before we run over for time. If every now and then you're getting a really crazy number and you're only taking 10 pips on your trade or something, you need to address that because that's a different issue. If you're getting stuff that's going 100 against you, coming back and then you're taking it out, you need to say, hey, those ones are going to wipe me out if I have too many of those, so I need to be very cautious about it. So very useful tool, that very useful data on your own trading that you can kind of manipulate and work with and improve your trading performance, bottom line from that. If you like this video, guys, give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already to the channel, and let me know your comments. Maximum adverse excursion, what are your thoughts on that? Take care, see you in the next one. Bye bye.